These are more uniform motion problems, but the difference between these is that we're going to be looking at comparisons in time. So in order to do that, we need a formula for it. So this is the one we used before, distance equals rate times time, and our problems look like this, where we'd have two items, and we'd use the rate times time equals distance formula. The difference now is we're not comparing distances, so we don't want a formula in terms of d, we want it in terms of t. So time here is distance over rate. And so that's what we're going to be using when we create our formula. So let's look at the first one. The president of a company traveled 1,800 miles by jet. So 1,800, you just still fill in the table. And 300 miles by prop plane. So our distance for the jet is 1,800. Distance for the prop plane is 300. So he did a total of 2,100 miles. The rate of the jet, this one, was 4 times the rate of the prop plane. So x and x. Okay, now that we have our distance, we have our rate filled in, we now use our formula, just like before. So our formula is distance divided by rate. So we take the 1,800, divide it by 4x, we take the 300, and divide it by x. And we can reduce this one. So 1,800 divided by 4 is 450. So this is really 450 over x. Now we have our times. So this little box right here, it represents the time traveled by the jet. And this box here represents the time traveled by the prop plane. So now when we put them all together, the entire trip took 5 hours. So the time traveled by the prop plane plus the time traveled by the prop plane has to equal 5. So that's what we're going to do. Take the time traveled by the jet, which is 450 over x, and the time traveled by the prop plane, which is 300 over x, and we're going to add them up to make the total time of 5 hours. And that's our equation that we get to solve. So now we can solve it by multiplying both sides by the common denominator, which gives us, x cancels and gives us 450, and the x cancels by distributing and gives us 300 and 5x. So that's 750 equals 5x, divide by 5, plug it in the calculator, 150. And that's our x. And we go back up and look and see what it is. X is the rate traveled by the prop plane. So what is the question asking for? It doesn't. So we're just going to assume we're looking for the rate of the jet and the rate of the prop plane. So the rate of the prop plane is 150. And what is our units here? Miles per hour. That's our x. And then the jet is 4 times that. So the rate of the jet is 4 times that. So 600 miles per hour. And there you go. That's it. So you notice the difference here is we're looking at times. So we take the distance and the rate, we divide it, and we add them up to make a total time. Let's take a look at another one. An engineer traveled 165 miles by car and an additional 660 by plane. So we have a car and we have a plane. And you did 165 by car, 660 by plane. The rate of the plane was 4 times that of the car, and x. So now we use the formula again, and that is distance over rate. So it's 165 over x, and then 660 over 4x. And we reduce it again. 165 over x. So again, this represents the time traveled by the car. So the car traveled 165 over x. It has to do with the speed. So if the car is traveling at 165 miles per hour, then to go 165 miles would be 1 hour. 165 divided by 165. If it was 50, it'd be 165 divided by 50 would tell us the time, and so on. So by plane, 165 over x. And so time traveled by the car plus the time traveled by the plane would have to equal the total time, which is 6 hours. And then if we solve that in the same way, we get 55 for our x. And then going back up to our problem, we know x is the speed of the car. That's what it says, rate of the car. So the car is traveling at 55 miles per hour. And the plane is traveling at 4 times that. Even though it didn't ask for it, I'm still going to write it. Plane is traveling at 4 times 55. So that would be 220. And there it is. All right, let's see if you can do one. So give this one a shot. Hit pause and try it. I mean, worst case, the answer is going to show up soon anyways. Hit pause, and then in about 3 seconds, everything will show up. So you should have gotten this for your setup. X for the speed of the regular, and then x minus 10 for the reduced, because it says it reduces speed by 10. And then dividing, we get this. And then adding them up gives us a total time of 2 hours. Multiplying by the common denominator, and then putting 1 here as reference, we can reduce and solve. Simplifying gives us this equation, and then since there's a square, we know we're going to have to factor, so we set it equal to 0, and then factor. And then after probably about 5 minutes of painful factoring, you get the factored form, which gives us an answer of 7.5 and 40. Now we can't have two answers, so one is going to make sense and one will not. So if we plug 7.5 back in, 7.5 minus 10 is not positive. It's negative 2.5, and that's not possible. So we can cross that one off, which leaves us with 40. So the regular rate is 40, and we are dealing with miles per hour. Yep. And the reduced speed, or rate, we'll keep them the same, is 10 less, so 30 miles per hour. And that's it. Now just to give you a kind of better picture of this, if we were to take and plug that 40 back in, you get 60 over 40, and we get 15 over the reduced speed of 30. Now plugging those into our calculator, we get 60 divided by 40, which is 1.5. And then 15 divided by 30 is 0.5. And if you add those up, that's a total of 2 hours, which was what our total time was. 2 hours for the entire trip. So that's what we're doing. We're trying to find the value that when we divide it by the distances, it gives us the total time. So time plus time equals time. Let's see if you can set this one up. Hit pause and give it a shot. Alright, so you should at least be here. So the cyclist is 12 miles per hour faster than the jogger. And so if we make our equation, we get this. And now why are you asking, am I putting them equal? Because it says, where did I see it? In the same amount of time. We're not adding them up to make a total time. They took the same time. So when we get this situation, we can just cross multiply. And solve this equation. Plug in our calculator. 96 divided by 12 is 8. And there it is. And we go back up and see what that is. X is the speed of the jogger. So the jogger's rate is 8 miles per hour. And the cyclist rate is 20 miles per hour. And if you want to check it again, we plug them in. 8 over 8 is 1, and 20 over 20 is 1. And there it is. Thank you.